start with the Eagles. The Eagles are raw. They're not polished. Terrible play design, specifically on third downs. They got blitzed a lot on third down, and they just could not handle it. Guys running go routes over and over again, just constantly throwing the deep ball. I will say, Devontae Smith had a chance to prove that he's a legitimate number one, and he did today. He balled. Other than him, though, who else stepped up?
I feel like in the beginning of the season, I feel like the main problem here is they stepped away from the run game. Or whenever they got stopped in the run game, they were just completely washed.
Yeah.
The beginning of the season, we saw Swift kind of go off.
Yes.
And he just had a couple games where he just went on a tear. But after that, you didn't really see any other light from this offense.
You hit it right on the head, Dylan. They used to run the ball effectively. That's what they did best. Even when they were struggling at the beginning of the season, that's what they did. They ran the ball. And when it didn't work, they kept trying to run the ball. What did they do here? They got away from the run, got too pass happy, and they've actually done that a lot in the second half of the season. They got too deep ball happy. I'm at the point now where you got to fire this coach, because what the hell does he do, Dylan? He doesn't call the plays. He doesn't rally the troops. He's not a leader. He just looks like he sits and bitches on the sideline about stupid calls that don't even matter about the game. He's sitting there arguing with the ref while another play is going on. What is going on with this head coach, Dylan?
All the weapons you want on offense. You have a quote-unquote good offensive line. You have targets everywhere. You have a good running game. It's just come to a point. What else can you do besides the play calling? Obviously, they're getting cooked on defense, but your defense can only hold up so long until your offense, starts to collapse.
Well, they have 9 points, and the Bucs defense, I've been saying all season, is pretty underrated. But to this level, I don't know, man. And you said, what else can you change besides the play calling? The quarterback? No, I wouldn't change the quarterback. I like Jalen Hurts a lot, but he regressed this season. There's no question about it. We might find out in a couple days, a week from now, that he gets a surgery and he was hurt all season. That might come out soon. But I don't know, man. I still think he's a great leader and all, but this was not the same offense this season. It wasn't even close to last season. It wasn't even close.
And the other problem is this defense. They just had people completely open.
Well, that's the main problem. I mean, that was pathetic effort today. Pathetic effort. It also comes back to coaching, but I know he's not a defensive guy, but still, missed tackles, people running wide open down the field. They can't stop the deep ball. No one can play the ball in the air. It's getting a little pathetic, Dylan.
I mean, it's just so weird. From the team last year to the team now, it's just a completely different team.
Well, we forgot. They also started 10-1. Did they struggle to 10-1? Yes, but they started 10-1. And then they couldn't even get to 12 wins.
Yeah, total. After that, they lost, 6 out of the 7
last games? 7 games, yeah, correct. And more on a brighter note, the Bucs, they're going to a second round. We did not see this coming. We didn't even really think this team was going to make the playoffs. Baker Mayfield has revived his career. He looked great in this game. He really did.
He did.
And there was a lot of drop balls, too. He could have looked even better. Otten dropped 2 or 3 passes.
Mm-hmm. Mike had a
huge touchdown pass
yeah.
dropped. Yeah, that would have been a nice touchdown.
Yeah, for sure.
So they're moving on to the next round. Looking at the Tampa Bay's defense and the Eagles' defense, it was night and day. They aren't even on the same level. Tackling, effort, coverage, rushing the passer. It just wasn't even close. So the Eagles have a lot to look out for in the offseason. Maybe fire Sirianni, go after Belichick. I don't know. We'll go into the Belichick stuff later because he's out as the Patriots head coach, but we'll get into the rest of the games first. Going on to another NFC East team.
Yeah.
The Dallas Cowboys, Dylan.
Yeah,
the Dallas Cowboys.
Pretty pathetic.
Again, the same thing. Every year, it's the same result. I got to say, this season, I actually fell for it a little bit. I kind of fell for it. I took the bait a little bit because, they had a nice win over the Eagles. They blew out a couple teams here and there. They had a couple nice wins this season. And this is probably Dak's best statistical season in the regular season. And CeeDee Lamb is a top 3 receiver, so it had me a little sold. I thought his defense was better than what it was too. I think that's the main focus here. They got gashed. They got completely gashed. And another head coaching thing. I know Mike McCarthy calls the offensive plays. He's not a defensive guy, but Dak sucked in this game. And that's 3 playoff losses in a row where they were embarrassing playoff losses. The first one, where they tried to do the hurry-up offense with less than 14 seconds, ran out of time. Last season, it was a close game against the Niners. I'll give them that. It was still Dak struggled, but it was a close game. And this season, just completely getting embarrassed by the Green Bay Packers with all first, second-year guys on offense. So, I mean, it's just...
It's weird. It just comes to a point of what else do? You do everything you want to see. You blow out bad teams. You win against good teams, and is it Dak at this point? Does he just choke?
I think it's time to look at Dak Prescott. I know he had an MVP type season, but I would keep Dak Prescott obviously, but I would not pay him big money moving forward. And this is exactly why he can't win the big game. I thought at least his team would be going to the NFC Championship game this season. I thought it was wide open for them to be the second best team in this conference, and they lose to the last seed. They lost to the last seed, Dylan. The Packers barely squeaked in, and I like the Packers. They're very feisty.
Yeah.
You know, they're going to be a problem for years to come. But this season, I thought this was a walk-away game for Dallas.
Exactly. And, you know, this Cowboys team is kind of a team where Dak has to put them on their back. They don't have that great of a run game.
They don't have any run game.
The defense is kind of shaky.
Very shaky.
And, you know, that's why we've been seeing the performance we have from Dak. But it's just too much of a roller coaster, because some weeks we'll see MVP Dak, and some weeks we'll be like, okay, that's not the guy.
Something to be said about that. It's like almost like Kirk Cousins. Like, that's why I always compare the two. They're like identical when it comes to like performance in the big time moment. And I like Dak. I think Dak is a top 13 quarterback. I say this all the time, but it comes back to my first ever reel on Instagram. I think Dak Prescott's a good quarterback, but I don't think he's a great quarterback.
And you know, he's a good. It's exactly what you're saying. Dak's a good quarterback, but you can't say somebody's a great quarterback when they can't shine in the moment.
And it seems like he never does. He sometimes in the regular season he does, but it's like this is what I'm.
When it really matters, he
folds every time, and I think McCarthy's a big part of this. Like, he just does stupid things. He doesn't think. Clock management's terrible, and sometimes the play calling is questionable. He got rid of Kellen Moore to run the ball more, and they've gotten worse running the ball. I mean, I know they lost Zeke, and Pollard's not it.
The key thing is here, they're giving it to Dak. You know, let him do what he wants, and that's not how you're going to win these games.
As far as Green Bay, though, those young players, other than Aaron Jones, who's getting older. By the way, he looked great.
No, Aaron Jones had a phenomenal day.
He looked great.
118 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns.
When he's healthy, man. When he's healthy. He didn't look... Like, week 1, he had a big game, and he was never the same because he got injured that game.
Yeah.
And now he's starting to... The last couple games really starting to look like himself. If he's going to play like this with this offense... Early take for next season, I got Green Bay winning that division over Detroit. I think Green Bay is going up now. I know I've been very hot and cold with Green Bay. I mean, notably early in the season, I was like crapping on Jordan Love, and you were kind of the complete opposite. Now you look like the stupid one. I mean, well, you always look stupid.
Yeah,
you look like the smart one. I look like the stupid one. But sometimes you just gotta admit when you're wrong, man. This guy, some of those throws Jordan Love was making, that one throw to Wicks in the back of the end zone off his back foot, getting hit as he threw, he makes some elite throws, man. He has the arm talent to be able to throw off his back foot. Dak needs to have perfectly set feet to throw. Dak needs to put all of his oomph into the ball. That's the difference. Jordan Love can just throw off his back foot. He can throw falling down, and it'll still be a dot. Dak has to be like perfectly set. That's why when Dak gets pressured, he struggles. So.
Jordan Love, man. I mean, he's making a case to be, you know, a top 5 quarterback right now.
Maybe one day.
All these new quarterbacks are coming in and, you know, lighting it up.
I gotta say right now, Love is pushing top 10 for me. He really is. I never thought I would ever say that. I remember early in the season.
He's just so well rounded.
So Green Bay's got a lot to look forward to. They play the Niners here. I don't think anyone's going to pick Green Bay to win this game.
No, but I mean,
the fact that they're here, the Miami Dolphins. It sucks, man, because I thought that this team was exciting. You know, I thought this was the best offense in the league. But the more that they played, the more that they showed me that they are limited in ways. They're just too Tyreek Hill reliant. Other than that one duck that Tua threw, and you were right on about this early in the season. Tua isn't great with the deep ball, and when the weather isn't like great, he struggles throwing the ball. That was a duck. Tyreek Hill to come back to it, make a couple juke moves. Like, that was all Tyreek Hill in that play. That one touchdown they had, the single lone touchdown they had in the whole game.
I've seen passes like that
many times.
Same play.
Many times to Tyreek Hill in good weather. Good weather. So I just want to get into the Chiefs a little bit here before we start to go more into the Dolphins. I think the Chiefs have a roster to win playoff games like this. Like cold weather, run the ball, great defense, star quarterback, star head coach. That's all you need in the playoffs, baby. Now they play the Bills. I don't know, man. I'll get into my pick later, but they have a clear shot again at getting back to the AFC Championship game. They somehow, some way, the Chiefs are right back in it. I was very impressed with the Chiefs from that game because cold, terrible weather, they just kept going right down the field.
They thrived in that.
Yeah, I know they had a lot of field goals. They didn't get a lot of touchdowns in this game, but it was.
But their defense held up. That's what it's all
about.
And
Pacheco, man, Pacheco is something special. When he's going, and just Mahomes is just so collected in that game. Kelsey looked fresh. Kelsey had a couple of nice catches in this game, so the Chiefs are right where they want to be right now. I mean, this might not be their year, but they got to be happy after that win.
For sure. I mean, the Chiefs kind of started off very slowly. I feel like it all comes down to Patrick Mahomes and him getting it done.
Yeah.
And in a situation like this, the Chiefs just have more experience. They've been in this position a lot longer than the Dolphins have.
That's the main point here. Great point. Because
and their defense alone, Dolphins obviously have kind of been spotty with the defense. So at the end of the day, I knew the Chiefs were going to win this in cold weather. Dolphins obviously don't perform. So I just don't know what to say about the Dolphins anymore.
Is it the quarterback? Because I love the head coach. Maybe he's lacking a sense of toughness, but they have a great DC who's also a tough guy. Who's tough, who instills toughness. So I don't know if it's necessarily that. Is it their quarterback? So he's going into, I'm pretty sure, his last year of his contract. They picked up his 5th-year option. But they haven't extended him yet. Usually if you have your guy, you extend him after their 3rd, 4th season. They haven't even thought about it yet. A big part was the injuries last season. That was a huge part of it.
Yeah.
But I think they're seeing now, like, the way McDaniel called that game, there was a lot of screen passes, short routes. I feel like he didn't trust Tua. He was showing us a lot in that game. When they were down big, they still weren't throwing the ball down the field. He just knew that Tua just couldn't put any oomph in the ball because it was cold out, and he's just kind of a weak arm, let's be honest. I mean, he's extremely accurate. I'll give Tua that. Mm-hmm. He's dead on when good conditions, but I feel bad because I like Tua, and he just says all the right things, and he's got a good attitude, and he's put up some numbers, like the 70-point game. He had some moments last season, too. Like, when him and Tyreek Hill are on, it's something special sometimes, but he's not special. Obviously he needs Tyreek Hill. Obviously he needs the help of, obviously, Jalen Waddle, Mostert, McDaniel's play calling. And this is where it leads you, a first-round exit, so.
I mean, listen, I kind of compare this to Dak Prescott too.
Very similar.
He just doesn't shine in the moment, And everyone's saying, and it's the cold weather. It just all comes down to leaving it up to Tua. He just can't get it done.
Let's rank these guys really quick, because I think this is actually interesting. Dak Prescott, Tua, Jordan Love. 1, 2, 3. Just gut instinct.
I mean, Jordan Love, Dak, Tua.
That's my exact one, too. Why Jordan Love? He's more talented than both those guys combined, and he's younger. So, actually, I don't know if he's younger than Tua, but he's definitely younger than Dak. So, yeah. I think was he the same draft? He was, because he's been in the league. This is his 4th season. I think he's 1 season behind Tua. So, he technically is younger. So, and he got the cheaper contract, too. I think he only signed for 2 years, $11 million, because they didn't know what they were going to get out of him. Mm-hmm. So, Jordan Love's definitely the better guy out of those 3 quarterbacks.
And this brings up a good question, too, because back in the day, you would get a quarterback, let him develop, stay behind a veteran quarterback, learn, and then get into the league. But now we see all these quarterbacks jumping right into it. Is it better to develop the quarterback first and then put him in the situation, then start him? Because that's what it seems like.
Well, Green Bay did that multiple times. It's worked. Kansas City did that with Mahomes. He sat his first season. But then you got guys like C.J. Stroud who comes out right away, and he's just, Justin Herbert comes out right away and is immediately. I guess it depends on the player. It depends if they're raw, ready to go. C.J. Stroud was more polished. Jordan Love was very raw. He needed some years to watch and learn, and now he looks more. He still gets a little erratic with his feet and his footwork and his mechanics, but his arm talent makes up for it. Mm-hmm. So
and that stuff comes along the way.
It does come a long way. So he'll learn over time with experience and what to do in situations, like where his feet need to be. CJ Stroud has the arm talent and he has the great footwork. So that's why sometimes people come in more polished. CJ Stroud, or even, necessarily like Joe Burrow came in right away. He was effective. Then you got guys like, I don't want to bring this name up, but Zach Wilson, who clearly wasn't ready, and they put him in right away. So you got guys all over the place in this league, but you got a wide range of talent. That's why you got to be able to find the talent, like Josh Allen, who was raw, wasn't polished. Within a few years, he's a star quarterback. So it's just like picking your pieces right. But moving on, let's get into this Browns-Texans game. I think Joe Flacco, I think it's safe to say the guy has finally come back to earth. I mean, it was a great run. But during that great run, he was throwing a lot of picks. And it came to show here. 2 back-to-back pick sixes on consecutive drives. That was rough. I was like, no way, that's impossible. I was like, I felt bad.
It was literally just a matter of time before, we would see the Joe Flacco.
The interceptions. Yeah.
I mean, it's just weird because this Browns team kind of had everything you want besides that quarterback.
And this is what you wanted to see, the last couple of games. But now this game with Joe Flacco, this is what Joe Flacco has been the last couple of years. This last game, and it sucks. But the Browns, I like this team a lot because their defense was really good, obviously. And they had some pieces on offense. Cooper was a beast, Njoku. But What you can, again, it always comes back down to the quarterback.
And yeah, it's a good question. What are you doing next year? Because you got a QB controversy.
I think you have to go back to Watson because you don't have a choice now. Like a couple of weeks ago, I would have said Flacco, no question. But after that game, and he's older, and like, will he relive that magic? He was throwing a lot of picks in those games. So so this season, I think Watson's cap hit was $19 million. Next year, it's $64 million. So this was the year to win a Super Bowl. This roster is never going to be as good as it was this season because now they're going to have to pay the quarterback. They didn't have to really pay him this year. Now he's going to be the biggest cap hit of any football player next season. So they're going to have to cut some pieces, Dylan. Obviously not Myles Garrett, but some other pieces like, dare I say, like, I don't even know. Would Amari Cooper have to go now? Would Njoku have to go? Like, I don't know where these guys' contracts stand right now, but some players are going to go.
For sure. I mean, unless Watson steps up, I don't know what I see from this Browns team. Overall, they have a good defense, so maybe just work off of that.
Well, that's the thing. Will they have to lose some pieces on that defense now? That's the big
question. Maybe keep that whole and kind of just take from the offense.
Maybe, because
that's been their whole season.
And that's what makes them special.
Exactly.
The defense. So that's a good point, but maybe they want to give some offensive pieces to have Watson play comfortably. Maybe there's a balance here. Maybe you could take some defensive pieces but add some offensive pieces, become more well-rounded. They were pretty well-rounded, though, this season. Now, they didn't lose Chubb. Imagine they had Chubb on this team, too.
It would be a different team.
That might have helped Flacco in this game. But let's get to C.J. Stroud now. He won a playoff game his first season. I mean, let's go back to the beginning. A couple games in, I remember the first game against the Ravens that they played. He struggled. And we were kind of saying, like, oh, I don't know about this guy. But he made a couple throws where we're like, there's something there. We both said, like, there's something there that you got to like. Bryce Young, we didn't really see that this season. C.J. Stroud, like, had that the first couple games. Like, we saw it. Like, they crushed Jacksonville early. They crushed the Steelers early. And we're like, wow, this guy has something. And just, I think this guy might be one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the league, Dylan. He's just constantly hitting on, and his accuracy down the field, like deep throws. I've never seen a guy hit on so many deep throws like C.J. Stroud does.
Yeah, you see one or two like that get overthrown, but him, it's accurate every time.
He had one, I think, that was overthrown, but like the majority of his throws down the field this season has just been like completely on the money. And they're gonna have to play the Ravens now, so it's gonna be tough for them.
Listen, it's going to be a good game, and I'm kind of excited to see how they match up against them, They kind of blew out the Browns.
They did. They blew out the Browns.
One of the best teams in the AFC.
They are. So.
Let's see how they match up against the Ravens.
And if they play them well, even if they lose, which they probably are, if they play them well, that's a lot to look forward to moving the next season. Could they be legit? Are they a year away from being Super Bowl contenders, Dylan? They add a few pieces. They could be a legitimate contender. They might be running away with this AFC South now.
I mean, let's not jump the gun too early because we saw what happened with the Jaguars. You were saying the same thing last year.
Well, hopefully they're not the Jaguars the next year. And then also the Colts imagine they just keep rotating. That's like kind of like the NFC East. Like how they keep rotating. So who's going to win the NFC East next year? I guess it'll be the Giants year. I'm kidding. But
I mean, the way that they're playing.
Yeah, that's true. But like, I'm very. I mean, D'Amico Ryans, man. What he's done for that Houston Texans team. I mean, enough to be said about that. Congrats to the Texans. They have moved on. They were a laughingstock a year ago. Like literally a joke.
I'm pretty sure you had them like last, their first or second round pick.
Yeah, I had them like finishing third, like with the third overall pick or something like that, like 3-14 or so. Pathetic. I had them finishing pathetic. That makes me pathetic.
And it kind of all comes down to C.J. Stroud because he's kind of carrying this team. I remember one week he was out and they did not look like the same team
at all.
No.
With Case Keenum, there was a couple, and that offense did not look the same. Then the second he came back, they started winning again.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know. I think he might be the next quarterback. Like I don't want to say like a Hall of Famer, but he's definitely going to be like a top 5 quarterback in the league moving forward.
At one point, I would have probably called you crazy, but that's not a crazy take anymore. I think he's like he's pushing top 8 now. He's in the top 10 for sure. He's pushing top 8. A lot of
people comparing him to like Patrick Mahomes.
See, I get it as far as like success, but as far as like the talent, it's a little different because Mahomes got the arm angles and the mobility. Stroud reminds me of a mobile Jared Goff, obviously, but I would say more of like a Justin Herbert, like big arm, big frame. Can move if he wants to, but just the cannon arm and the accuracy.
That's a good comparison. Yeah,
I'm hearing Jared Goff a lot, but I think he's better than Jared Goff.
I think so too.
I think he's even better. So I think to compare him to Goff, which I like, Goff's a good quarterback. Not to even crap on Goff. It's a little downplaying how good Stroud really is. Yeah. But moving on, the last game that we're going to talk about, the last game that was on this Wildcard Weekend, Steelers-Bills got pushed back to today. We're actually filming this right after the Eagles game, by the way, guys. So Steelers-Bills got pushed back to Monday. It was the first game of the Monday slate. And the Steelers actually made this interesting at the end. And Mason Rudolph did not play bad. I'm not gonna lie. He held in there. He struggled in the beginning, kind of rallied back. These wide receivers, Deontay Johnson, Pickens got going. Mainly Deontay Johnson, a couple big catches at the end. But, I never really thought the Steelers were going to win this game. I just thought the Bills were the better team. And it really comes down to the quarterbacks. That 50-yard run that Josh Allen has, that makes all the difference. That makes all the difference. Having a quarterback that can do that. Not saying like every quarterback can do that. But like it's just having a special guy that has something they do different than everyone else. That was the difference in this game, the quarterback.
I mean, Josh Allen is kind of that clutch guy. The only reason why I was choosing the Steelers is just the way that the Bills have been playing. I know they had a couple really good games, but, you just saw those mistakes from him, and I didn't know if that was going to linger in this game. He was going to turn the ball over a lot, but he didn't. He clutched up. He had a lot of good throws. The offense was running pretty efficiently. They were using James Cook. They were getting the running game going. And that's exactly what you want to see. And, the Steelers did almost come back here.
They did.
I feel like the momentum really changed after that blocked field goal.
It was.
Yeah.
It did change. But TJ Watt being out was huge for them.
Yes, that was kind of a big piece that I didn't realize.
You could tell the Steelers defense was kind of a little shaky in this game.
It was very shaky. Yeah. They weren't getting any pressure on Allen.
Exactly. That was the whole thing. That was a big difference in this game, I gotta admit.
But listen, it all starts with that line because you saw receivers down the field that were kind of wide open. Yeah. And you got to realize they wouldn't have been wide open if TJ Watt was applying that pressure and they would have had to get the ball out earlier. So, I don't know. I mean, the Bills they won this game, but it wasn't too much of a convincing win with them. I think they're going to get shot out by the Chiefs, honestly.
We will definitely get into that in a little bit. I do think that's an interesting matchup. We'll see if I side with you. I'm not too. I think this was actually kind of an impressive win because it's a playoff game. The Steelers play everyone tough. Let's be honest. And I'm really liking this guy Shakir, that third receiver they have, that touchdown they have. He's got some feisty moves. I've seen him make some plays over the stretch here. James Cook is James Cook. When they really needed him to carry the ball down the stretch, he was pretty effective in this game. So when they got a guy like that, it's huge for Josh Allen. But Josh Allen made big runs when he had to too. Even on that last drive, second to last drive, their final scoring drive, he's just always, like you said, always clutching it up. Not always, though, because there were some past seasons where, he turned the ball over in a key moment, but he's really coming to a kind of a mini zone here. I don't want to say they're red hot because they're kind of squeaking by here and there, but they have really found ways to win ugly games. I don't want to say ugly because this game wasn't ugly. They played well in this game. But to win games that aren't certain. They used to have that Mike Tyson quality where they would just knock everyone out. And the second someone would punch them back, they would fold. They would say,
that's a good description of it.
Now someone punches them back and they punch him back again. Then they punch him back again. That's called James Cook. The two tight ends. Kincaid too, man. Kincaid's really coming on as a strong tight end. He's really starting to take over Knox. Even though Knox also had a touchdown. The two tight ends, man.
Yeah.
That's the difference here. It's not just Diggs relying, they got other pieces down.
Knox took a little while to get back to what he was performing before.
Wasn't he kind of hurt at
He had a surgery.
Okay, exactly right. Okay.
Yeah, and the other thing that I want to mention is before this season, they had James. What did they have James Cook last season too?
Yeah, but they
weren't using him. They were using Singletary, and they just didn't have an efficient run game.
And he was a rookie. He kind of came on late, but it was still like inconsistency from James.
I mean, he's doing fine on Houston now, but they just weren't utilizing the run game as they should. But now that they are, they just seem like a completely different team.
Well, even in the beginning of the season, I feel like they weren't running the ball as much. I think it was once the offensive coordinators changed and Joe Brady took over that we've seen more of a persistence to run the football, which they need, which Josh Allen needs, which this offense needs. And McDermott, after looking stupid with that whole 9/11 thing that happened, what we heard about a couple of years ago from the remarks he made, he's got to rally the troops here. So I got to give credit where credit's due. This guy faced a lot of adversity this season, and now he finds himself in the divisional round, playing for a spot to get into the AFC Championship game.
Yeah, the picture of Lombardi doesn't look stupid now. Huh?
It doesn't mean they'll get there, though, but it still might look stupid.
It might.
Okay, so Rams-Lions, Dylan. Matt Stafford returns to Detroit. That was probably the funnest game for me to watch all weekend.
Yes, I loved watching that game. That was a phenomenal game. It went back and forth. You didn't know who was going to win it. Lions kind of had the upper hand the whole time, but, the Rams stuck in it. And, I know the Rams lost, but Puka Nacua, there is so much to look forward to with this team. Puka Nacua might be one of the best receivers in the league after this year. Like, he's just phenomenal. yards after the catch. He's shedding tackles.
I think the breaking tackles, his great hands, the possession and breaking tackles is his specialty. Really, the route running too. He's a great route runner. But to me, biggest takeaway from this game, you got two good quarterbacks in this game. The biggest takeaway from this game for me is that Stafford is the much better quarterback. Just watching that game, the guy was making so many throws. I'm like, oh my god, this guy's sick. But Goff has the better team, and Goff played very well in this game. Goff was a beast in this game. Don't get me wrong. But I just watched so many throws from Stafford where it was like they were blitzing him, he was going to hit, and he was just making these sidearm throws on 3rd and 15, hitting these first downs. The problem with them, they didn't really get the running game going, so they had a lot of 3rd and longs in this game. And when they got into the red zone, they couldn't punch it in. They had a lot of field goals, couldn't get touchdowns, and in the first half, the Lions got 3 touchdowns in the red zone. That was the difference, the first half red zone from both teams. Very close game, though. These teams are very evenly matched, but the Lions are the better team. They are. The Rams, next year, they could be vying for a division title. They could be vying to be Super Bowl contenders. Stafford still, that was my biggest takeaway from this game. Stafford could still ball, man. Because I saw so many throws from that guy this game. I'm like, wow, this guy is still a top 10 quarterback in the league.
Yeah, you got to know moving into next season, like, quarterback is not your guy's problem. I don't know what the problem is. Maybe get some
defensive pieces.
Some defensive
back
pieces,
end.
maybe a few linemen to protect Stafford.
Right.
Because he is getting older and he's not really, a mobile quarterback.
Not anymore. Yeah.
But, you have everything put together on, you got your key targets, you got a few wide receiving.
Running back.
Yeah, good running back.
Tight end.
Maybe get, another running back,
Draft one maybe 2nd, 3rd round.
A lot of these offenses are really good when they have a great running game. And that was the difference here because the Lions, they have it all put together.
Multiple running backs.
You have Montgomery, he's a straight runner. He'll get through the hole. He'll get you yards after contact. And then you have Gibbs. That's more of a receiving back that will kind of juke guys out and
they complement each other
a lot of
well.
breaks, So it's kind of they have their offense put together there.
They complement each other very well, Gibbs and Montgomery. And a lot of people were crapping on the Gibbs pick, the number 12 overall pick. Why are you taking a running back there? When you think about it, they kind of traded back. They had a higher pick. They traded back. They got 2 picks. They got Gibbs. They got Laporta in the beginning of the 2nd round. Two studs.
Both paying out.
Great draft for them. Great draft. They got a great GM, Brad Holmes. Great head coach, Dan Campbell. Gets a little too aggressive for my liking, but he's got the troops rallied all the time. And they are playing the Tampa Bay Bucs. They should win this game. They will be in the NFC Championship game. I don't want to jinx it, but they are the better team than the Bucs, so they should win that game. We'll get into those picks in a little bit. But biggest takeaway from this game, these are very evenly matched teams. If Stafford if the Rams had even a couple more defensive pieces, I feel like this game would have been a little bit different. Like the Rams were right there. I felt like many times that. Another thing that we haven't really talked about, Sean McVay kind of ran out of timeouts too quick. He did this a couple times this season, and they punted the ball and they didn't have any timeouts left. I kind of was like, you guys are screwed now because the Lions are just going to run the clock out. And Dan Campbell being aggressive, throwing the ball, what was it, 2nd down right after 2 minutes in the morning, that really sealed the game. So.
Yeah, they just want to go for the shutout,
and
just want to end it.
Every aggressive play call that Dan Campbell had in the game worked. The 4th down when they had the touchdown. So, great job.
But it works for them. It works for them.
Well,
it worked. On the back,
it's a playoff game and it worked, man. Yeah, so it was a playoff game and it worked. Maybe next week it won't, but they have a good shot here to make it to the NFC Championship game. So we'll see if they do. The Rams just got these again. They had a great draft. They had a couple 3rd round picks on that defense that had multiple sacks. Like I think they had a 3rd rounder that had 9 sacks. The nose tackle Kobe Turner, and they had I think a linebacker was it DN. Had 8 sacks, also a 3rd round pick. So they had some talent on defense, young talent coming up. These guys hit on the draft. Maybe get a couple more pieces. They're right there. They are right there.
Definitely. The way that they're playing, for sure.
Right there in the NFC.
And Lions, they have a hard competition. Like, the Tampa Bay is feisty, especially after this game, so it should be a good game.
That defense isn't a joke, the Tampa Bay defense. So.
And they shouldn't
and their defense
play
is a
around
joke.
with their
their defense is a joke, but played better in this game, but still a little shaky. Okay, so Bill Belichick, no longer the head coach of the New England Patriots. Him and Robert Kraft had mutually agreed to part ways. Pretty much, Kraft fired him. I mean, he's not going to come out and say that, but it was over. In my opinion, the best head coach of all time. I mean, like that 20-year stretch he put on, I've never seen anything like it. Sure, he needed Tom Brady, but I think Tom Brady also needed Belichick. They were the perfect combination. And he might have been the best defensive schemer I've ever seen. He might be the best second-half adjustment play caller that I've ever seen. Like, I've never seen a team make so many adjustments at halftime and look like a completely different team where they stifle offenses. I've never seen coach, stifle young quarterbacks the way Belichick has. He's just so elite. He's such an elite defensive play caller. I think he could still coach in this league.
Do you think he's definitely going to be coaching this league? Just from his tenure itself.
He's going to. Now the question becomes his GM, his GM role. Like, he's had a couple terrible drafts. He can't draft offensive talent. I mean, it shows. I mean, I think last draft he literally drafted 2 kickers in the guard. Who drafts 2 kickers in the draft? I've never heard of that before. So, like, what are we doing here? So, Bill Belichick, with the whole Dallas thing going on with Mike McCarthy, I think it lines up perfectly for Dallas. What do you think? Dallas Cowboys, Bill Belichick? I heard him and Jerry Jones are friends.
Listen, I think it's going to go the other NFC team. I think he'd be a perfect fit for the Eagles.
Oh.
Nick Sirianni out.
I think both those guys, my opinion, you got to fire both those guys. I don't know if they necessarily do. McCarthy and Sirianni. So look, Belichick is a Northeast guy that might fit. Another possible landing spot, the Washington Commanders. I think that would fit very well for him too. He's a historical guy. They're a very historical team. They have a great history of won Super Bowls, all that fun stuff. He gets to stay in the Northeast. They have new ownership, so they're probably willing to bring him on as the GM. Probably a little desperate. They're probably not, because they have smart ownership now. It's not a Dan Snyder situation, but. So they still might be willing to bring him in as GM because it's a clean slate.
I think he's going to go to a team that has an offense that's mainly well put together already, like with the actual quarterback.
Yeah, they do have the number 2 overall pick, the Commanders. So he could pick his quarterback technically.
That's a good point.
I'll go Dallas. I guess you're going to go Eagles, but I think Dallas is just. That just screams like great story. Like Bill Belichick finally winning a Super Bowl without Brady with the Dallas Cowboys, who haven't won a Super Bowl in 30 years, America's biggest brand. Oh my God, I can just see the script for that now, man. That would be crazy.
That would be a great script.
The problem is 2 big personalities. Jerry Jones is an owner that likes to play GM. And Bill Belichick's a head coach that likes to play GM. You got 2 guys on the opposite ends of the spectrum that likes to play GM. So I don't know if that will work.
How does that work? Does the owner choose the GM?
Yeah, owner chooses GM, GM chooses head coach, but the owner is the GM, so very tricky situation there in Jerry world. So a very tricky situation.
Yeah, I mean Belichick shouldn't kind of know. Like he's just not the guy for GM. Offense. Stay on that.
Here's the thing though, like. He's, how do you tell a 70-year-old guy who's successful and is the most successful guy ever what to do? He's going to tell him, who that for you, man? I'm Bill Belichick. Who are you? Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, it's like, look at my rings.
Yeah. Well, Jerry Jones got a couple of rings too, so I mean, maybe that's not the perfect person to pick a fight with. One of the leaders of the NFL. But Eagles situation. Harry Roseman is a great GM. He's not going anywhere either. So you come in there, you're going to be under Howie. Like, that's what it's going to be. Howie's not going to answer Bill Belichick. Howie's built 2 Super Bowl contending teams. He built the one with Nick Foles, that Nick Foles won, and he built the one last year that made it and almost beat Mahomes. Great game by Jalen Hurts, by the way. So he's built up 2 potential contending teams. You're just gonna give him have him relinquish power to Bill Belichick. I don't see that happening.
I don't see that happening either.
So Belichick would have to be willing,
especially like 2 teams that are already like kind of put together.
Exactly. So Belichick would have to be willing in both these scenarios to relinquish some of his power. That's why I think the Commanders might be the most likely scenario here, and we're forgetting the one.
Chargers.
Nope, we're forgetting the one wild card that everyone's been talking about. Tick tock, tick. Doc starts with an A. Well, their city starts with an A.
Arizona?
No. That's a good one. Atlanta, man.
Oh yeah,
I've been hearing that a lot. I don't get it. Do you get it?
I don't get it at all.
I think they need another offensive guy with all that talent on offense. I think Arthur Smith didn't know how to use it right, even though he's a good offensive guy. I think he was a little too overwhelmed for the gig. I think you need to bring an offensive guy there to shore up that offense. You have so many pieces on that offense. You need to find some guy to bring it all together. That's what I think. But maybe, hey, it's an East Coast. I think it's close to one of his homes that he just bought or whatever. I don't see it happening. I think he's just in my opinion, I think he's trying to drive up his price. But, hey, who am I? What do I know?
I mean,
what do you think about that? Do you think that's legitimate? He just interviewed with them today, I think.
I mean, it could just be exactly what you said. He's just trying to drive up his bid.
Do you think it's possible?
I don't know. I just feel like I wouldn't. It's not a good look for him on the
on the Falcons. They're such like a Jets team. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
They're like a team that's like not successful.
I feel like he's gonna want to go on a team that's like kind of right there on like the border of being like a great team.
It's weird because some people consider the Falcons that, but when you go 7-10 3 seasons in a row, you can't say that.
I mean, that's what I feel about the Chargers. You know, they have everything put together, just nothing's clicking. You know?
Yeah, very true. So Pete Carroll also out. But apparently he said that he's going to stay within the organization.
So, yeah, I don't think we're going to be seeing him on anything.
So you don't think he's going to coach anymore? You think he's done permanently or just this season?
I mean, listen, at his age...
He's old. But he's energetic for his age. He looks young.
I know that, but just the way that it happened, you know, the organization, like, releasing a report that he was going to stay in the organization, it just feels like he's done with coaching.
I think that, too, and I also think that even if he wasn't, I think he still wants to coach, but the league has kind of passed him by. Like it's a young offensive coach like era now, and Belichick's his own guy. He's in a completely different story. I mean, he's the winningest head coach of all time as far as Super Bowls. Mm-hmm. You're gonna give him another shot. But as far as guys like Pete Carroll, you know, who's another guy like that? A defensive guy like Vic Fangio only got one shot, but I mean he's not Pete Carroll. Just long story short, defensive coaches, old defensive coaches. And plus, his defense has not been good for a couple of seasons now. So it's like, what are you even doing here? I know it's a great motivator. I would take him as my head coach, like any day. But like, how much longer would you really have with him? It's a tricky situation. So I think this is for the best. I do. But I do think maybe he gets the itch again, and there's an opening next season, and maybe he goes back. But for now, for the near future, I think this is it for him.
Yeah, same here. I can't really see him going on another team. There's other candidates out there that want to be head coach, so...
Speaking of other candidates who want to be head coach, I don't know how familiar you are with Jim Harbaugh, but Jim Harbaugh was the head coach of the Niners probably about 10 years ago. Went to the Super Bowl, played his brother John, lost. Before that, he was at Stanford, won Stanford. Basically, he's won everywhere he won. He went to Michigan now. Michigan hasn't won anything in decades. Finally brings Michigan back to the national championship. They can never beat Ohio State, their arch rival. They beat him every year now. He coaches up every team that he goes to. I'm hearing a lot of rumors for the Chargers here. He gets a star quarterback. That defense, the biggest thing the Chargers need is a competent head coach because they look like they're lacking coaching in their play style. They always have players, but it seems like they can never put it together. Why? Coaching.
Exactly.
You get an offensive guy. Harbaugh's a former quarterback in the league. How do you feel about that? Harbaugh to the Chargers.
That would be a great look. I mean, I was saying before, they just seem like they're missing something because they have everything you want. You know, they have key receivers. You know, a great run game. An MVP quarterback at times. You know, you just question like, what else are they missing? And it has to be coaching. I mean, what else could it be?
Pretty much. And this guy, everywhere he goes, Harbaugh, brings the team back from the ashes. This would be the perfect fit for him. As far as brand, it doesn't really make sense because the Chargers are like, they have like no fans. I can see him as more like a Dallas or a Philly. But as far as fit, like team-wise, this is probably the best fit for him. He gets a star quarterback that's already established in the league. He's got players everywhere. Maybe draft a few more players on offense because, you know, pieces are getting older.
Yeah.
Keenan Allen.
I don't know if they're even going to keep Eckler.
Yeah, that's a big one. Eckler, and he looks washed. Keenan Allen's always hurt. Michael Williams is always hurt. Quentin Johnson looked like a bust. So they got a lot of questions.
He could just rebuild at this point. Trade away some players.
They have a high pick, I think. So I think they're top 5 or top 6. So they got some options. They got some options here. So Jim Harbaugh, in my opinion, is coming to the NFL. It just depends where. It sounds like the Chargers. I think he's already spoke to the Chargers. Everything I'm hearing is the Chargers. That's LA. I heard he's a West Coast guy too, so that's a perfect fit for him. You got your quarterback. You're an offensive guy. You're a former quarterback. Mm-hmm. You want someone to come in, bring Justin Herbert to the next level because he's hit that top, 6 or 7 ceiling. I think he's top 5, top 6, but he hasn't won a playoff game yet. So you need to put him over that hump. So bringing the Harbaugh would do the trick for me.
I mean, college is just too easy for him now. So
and he made the Super Bowl with the Niners, who was like 2 years before that a crap show. So he just showed
he has a good resume.
Yeah, exactly. So we will get into the divisional weekend. So we'll start with Saturday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern time. We got the 4-seed Houston Texans at the 1-seed Baltimore Ravens. Who do you got?
I mean, listen, I think this is going to be a shootout, but I think the Ravens are just the more experienced team, and I'm sure they're just thinking Super Bowl. That's all they got on their mind.
I hope they don't look past this game, though, because that's when you get upset. But C.J. Stroud, I think he was a great story this year. I think it ends this week. Baltimore's just the better team. Better offense, better defense. Right now, they have the better head coach. I mean, Harbaugh's won a Super Bowl. And Lamar Jackson's just, I think he's just going to have a field day in this game. I think Houston keeps it close. Maybe they keep it within 10. Stroud will put up some points, but that defense is going to be too tough for him. And, I think that, I don't know if they're going to be able to run the ball effectively this game. Singletary has his moments, but against a defense like this, I don't know. It's going to be tough for them.
It's going to be very tough for them, but they went up against one of the best defenses in the league, and now they're going up against another great defense. And
that is true. They went up against the Browns and they put them up.
And they put up 31 points against the Browns on offense.
That's true.
I'm kind of curious to see how they play up against the Ravens. Listen, I think this is going to be a shootout. I don't think it's going to be a blowout in any way.
I actually think the opposite. I think it'll be relatively low scoring, like maybe 21-16. I think it'll be
two great offenses. I can't see that.
I think, yeah, you might be right. We'll see.
I think it's going to be like a 30-33 game.
I think you underestimate how the Texans defense isn't terrible. I think D'Amico Ryans plays them up a little bit, but it could go either way. This could be like a 35-33 game, or it could be like 16-13. Depends on the weather too, I think, a big part. Baltimore could be rough weather. It could not be, though. It's still in that time of year where it could go either way with the weather, so we'll see. We just saw Kansas City was a crap show, but then you saw, what was the other game that was like completely clear?
Tampa Bay.
Yeah, well, that was Tampa. You gotta expect that from Tampa. But anyway, we'll go to 8:15 on Saturday. Packers, the 7 seed, against the 1 seed Niners. This is going to be tough for the Packers. What do you got? I got Niners here.
I got Niners here too, but the way that the Packers have been playing, I can see the Niners kind of folding here. Like, this is a go-either-way game. The 49ers have kind of looked shaky halfway through the season, especially against good teams. So, if the Packers did anything they did this week, I think it should be a good fight.
So, I think the Packers defense played a little bit above themselves last week. I think they come back down to earth here. I actually think it's going to be a blowout. Give me Niners by plus 2 touchdowns, honestly. I think this is where Green Bay comes back down to earth. But they should be happy for the way this season went, regardless if they get killed or not in this game. So the Sunday game, 3 o'clock Eastern time, we got the 4 seed Bucs at 3 seed Lions. This might be, it's not that tough for me. It might be, but I think the Lions got this. What about you?
I think the Lions got this too. The Bucs did play a really good game this week, but just the Lions, the way that they played last week, or the week that just came, it just shows like how much key players that they have on offense and how much they can really do.
Well, I think the Bucs defense could be feisty in this situation against this Lions offense, but Laporta looked a little banged up, but it didn't look as bad as I thought it was going to be. So if you got all those pieces around you, the Lions just have the better team.
Yeah.
I think Baker. Honestly, this might end up being a high-scoring game because the Lions defense isn't that impressive at times. There's that back end. I think Baker could potentially torch this defense. But the Lions, I think, is going to control the game on the ground. They're going to control the line of scrimmage with their offensive line. Although the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defensive line is going to give them a good fight because they have a good front seven. But the Detroit Lions offensive line, I think they'll establish a running game, and then Goff will be able to get the play action going. And I do think that Laporta will... he only had 2 catches last week because he was kind of hurt. He had a huge touchdown, though. And I think he'll have a big game this week, Laporta. I think he'll get healthier, and it will be a big showing from Laporta. Give me Lions.
Well, that's the thing you want to look out for. With this Lions team, what are they going to be like when Goff's under pressure?
Well, that's always been the biggest point with Goff that I always try to make. So that's a good point. We will see what happens with that for sure.
Interesting.
Bucs front seven could get a little scary at times, especially with Tom Bowles as the head coach. He's a good defensive guy. We saw it in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs. 6:30 p.m. Last but not least, I think this is the best game of the week. We got a rematch of all rematches. Chiefs 3 seed at Bills 2 seed. That is tough. That one actually can go either way. I can see this being completely split with people picking this game. I'll let you go first. What do you got?
I got the Bills here. They just have a better overall team, or a better overall offense, and they're a little more consistent. The Chiefs, they've kind of showed me Mahomes could only do it for so much until one of his receivers just drops the bag, literally. Even last week, you saw a few drops here and there. Even Travis Kelce was dropping the ball too. But honestly, the way that the Bills have been playing, I think they're going to be winning this.
So it's tough for me, but I'm going to go with the Kansas City Chiefs. Okay. I think that the Chiefs the Bills might have the better offense. The Bills might even have the better roster, but I think the Chiefs have the better roster built for the playoffs. I said this earlier, the Chiefs defense good running game, star quarterback, star head coach. That's the combination you want. I think last game against Miami kind of put them on a mini roll now. I think they realized, okay, we know how to win these playoff games now. We got to run the ball, don't turn the ball over, play defense, make a big play or two with Mahomes when we need to. And I think they do that here. And I think Buffalo, I know the Pittsburgh Steelers only scored 17 points and it was late. But the secondary did kind of get gassed a little bit at times by those wide receivers. So it worries me a little bit.
You saw a lot of wide receivers.
Exactly. Kelsey looks fresh. Rashee Rice has had some big moments. I'm not going to say that they're going to gas this secondary because what are they working with Kansas City? But I think Pacheco has a big game, so give me Kansas City.
Okay, that should be an interesting one.
That is going to be the game that we're split on. So you went 2-4 in Super Wildcard Weekend. Oh, wait, sorry. So I went 2-4 in Super Wildcard Weekend. You went 3-3. Trying to give you the failures.
Yeah, right?
It was a rough week for me.
It was. I mean, a lot of upsets.
The Browns.
You can't really predict.
I will say the Browns one. I mean, obviously the Cowboys one was the biggest shocker, but the Browns one kind of shocked me. I didn't think they were going to get blown out like that. But once the second pick six happened, I'm like, oh god, this is over. It was rough.
It all comes down to quarterbacks, obviously. I mean, Joe Flacco was only played 4 or 5 games.
Yeah, well, it was bound to happen. He's going to come back down to earth. He's been like this the last couple of years.
It's just so ashamed to happen in the key moment.
It's the biggest moment of them all. So, biggest thing to watch out for, or biggest game to watch out for. This biggest takeaway coming this weekend, Dylan. What do you got for us?
I think it's going to be the Chiefs and Bills. I feel like that's really going to determine the AFC.
Well, that is, because we think that Baltimore is going to beat Houston, so it really is going to come down to the Bills. Chiefs, you are correct.
No matter what happens, the AFC Championship is going to be exciting.
So you have the Bills beating the Chiefs. What do they have to do to beat the Chiefs this week, Dylan? Before we sign off, this will be our last thing.
They got to get the running game going. You got to hit all your targets. You can't be too Stephon Diggs reliant. You got to spread the lob, get Kincaid going, get Knox going. Knox is starting to come back now, so now you have more targets, more reliant targets that you can hit, and just make sure that line holds up because if Chris Jones comes in hot, he better be careful and not just throw it away and throw picks. Minimize the picks. That's the main thing.
That's the key with Buffalo always. And for the key, since I picked Kansas City, the key for Kansas City, defense. They got to put pressure on Josh Allen, force him to make dumb decisions, and then on offense, play your game, man. Let Mahomes do his thing. Don't get too carried away. Move the ball methodically like you did last week against the Dolphins. If you have to settle for field goals, settle for field goals because eventually Josh Allen will make the mistake, in my opinion. Might not happen, but it always could at any time. So, all right, Dylan, we will get into the divisional weekend next week. Got a couple weeks left. Thanks, man. See you next week.